How you doing? There's so much to cover when it comes to the word pit. When you first started talking about the pit, the bottomless pit, and how it's used, I went to in my mind, I went over to the book of Numbers, I think it is, where some of the sons of Korah came to Moses and said, "You take too much onto yourself. We are holy also." And they wanted to be esteemed as leaders. They were Levites, and they were responsible for the tabernacle, and they wanted to have higher recognition. So these sons of Korah were called to a meeting, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them and all their families. And then the earth closed its mouth. So they went down into a pit. It's almost like a picture of, or a simile of, the chains of darkness that restrain and that contain the wicked spirits. It's kind of like that a little bit. And so that's what I kind of went to that in my mind as you were talking about this place. There's so much more that can be said about it. It's still a mysterious picture to think about, demons coming out of that pit. But you can see why people conjured up this imaginary, this place of hell where demons are restrained down in the fire, like Dante's Inferno. You can see why Dante created that imagery because of some of the various phrases that use the word hell, and what you read in Jude and 2 Peter, reserved in chains of darkness. The other thing I thought of was, if anyone would offend one of these little ones, he would be better off if a millstone was tied around his neck and he was cast into the sea, rather than offend a little one. So it's really emphasizing the seriousness of causing babes to stumble, to turn away from the faith, or to be offended by the Bible itself, even by misrepresenting what God's work really is. You'd be better off if you were thrown in the sea, as you were talking about the waters, the deep, the great deep. So that's a couple of things I was thinking about. One other thing is Joseph's brothers cast him into a pit also, with the intent that he would die in the pit, until afterwards they had a better idea to sell him to someone. So this word pit, this bottomless pit, and the concept itself is so broad, it's so applicable in such a variety of ways. So I'll let Gail say something.
Thank you, Alan. That's several good connections that you brought this evening. I appreciate it very much.
Well, I'm going back now to Revelation 11:7. And the way it's worded, it's almost as if the beast that comes out of the bottomless pit has been loosed for a while before it actually kills the witnesses. And when they have finished their testimony, the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit, which we find back in chapter 9, shall make war against them. So it doesn't look like this beast ascends out of the pit and immediately makes war against them.
That's right. That's right. It's a very concise statement in Revelation 11. It ascends and then makes war, but there could be waiting period. It might start slow. I'm with you. Edward, do you have any comment to contribute?
Well, I just wonder what is a bottomless pit? I mean, how can you even have such a thing? It makes no sense to me.
Are you saying every pit should have some bottom? Is that the
Well, I
question?
think that's the definition of a pit, to have something that has a bottom.
Yeah, it's a just conceptual thing. Somehow you got to have a bottom unless you drill a pit through the center of the earth. So you come up other side. So then it doesn't have bottom. But it is just a conceptual, like it says like it's infinite depth or immeasurable depth. That's the more like idea, I think. I think my interpretation. Good question.
First time.
Any other insight into the subject? Yes, Alan.
I think the word bottomless is really trying to help you understand that there's no escape. You can't go out the bottom. You can't dig your way out of it. It means that whatever is in there can be released by God Himself at His will. But if something or someone is in the bottomless pit, you can't get out of that. You can't escape that. So we see this word narrow pit in Proverbs 23, and we see deep pit in Proverbs 22. What these are saying is that they're like a bottomless pit. These pits that Proverbs talks about are pits that you cannot get out of it once you're in it. For a whore is a deep ditch, and a strange woman is a narrow pit. What that means is it's symbolic language for if you get involved with that person, that whore, you can't escape after you've been intimately involved with that person. It's Proverbs 23. 27. So it's just language that indicates an impossible escape. A narrow pit, you cannot get out of it. What narrow really means is that the sides are so steep, they're straight up and down, like a well. In the old days, if you fell into a well, you can't get out unless somebody lowers a rope down to you, unless somehow there's been a ladder put down there. You can't escape that. So I think that's what, when we read this word bottomless, what we're reading is something that is indicating an impossibility of escape. You can't dig your way out because there's no bottom to dig.
That's the first time I've ever heard anybody explain that at all. That concept. Can't get out of it.
Good job, Alan.
Thank you, Ed.
Welcome.
There's a very similar one in the previous chapter, 22, in verse 14, where it says, the mouth of a strange woman is a deep pit. It's another indication that this woman is someone who entices you into sexual behavior. And once you're snared by it, the natural man, the normal man, is fully incapable of escaping. I believe that's the thought that's being conveyed here. So I'm just trying to compare the idea that these are kind of the same thing, inescapable.
I think in the background, we see an adulterous woman somehow ties itself up to.
What does Sheol mean again?
Sheol is considered is a Hebrew word equivalent to Hades. If you go back to my presentation,
Which is usually the grave.
here it is Hades. This is Sheol. This is just a Hebrew word. It's an equivalent of concept, which means a grave in Hebrew. This is literal meaning, but Sheol is used more as a semyon, figure of speech, where the dead would go. Yes, Alan.
There's something else I'm noticing here. There's a king, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, a king that's over them, that is over the locusts. It says here in Revelation 9:11, and they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew tongue is Abaddon and the Greek tongue Apollyon. But then later on, we find a beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit. Are they the same or not? Is the king who is over the bottomless pit the same as the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit? The angel, I'm sorry, the angel
Yeah, angel of the bottomless pit.
is Revelation 9:11. And then in Revelation 11:7 is the beast. And in Revelation 17:8, it's the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit. So is there two separate individuals here? One is the angel, one is the beast.
Yeah, I think at this point, we are still not ready to make that conclusion, because in one incident, it's a star that falls and then opens the bottomless pit.
Yeah.
And the second case is an angel that comes down with chain and the key. So it could be different or it could be logically same. We need to do a little bit more study on that. I think we are not yet ready. You are welcome to present your conclusion if you see an insight into that.
Okay.
But that's a good thing you raised, so that people would think. I checked the Greek, the star fell. The word is actually fallen. It's not descending like a normal way. Was he pushed or was he jumping, or we don't know, like the word pipto is falling. But other case with chain and key, he did not fall, he came down. So that was a big debate, right? Who is the king of bottomless pit? Is it devil or some angel? That was always a big debate. Devil will not be given the key to a prison, right? Otherwise, he will open and bring all the demons out, right? So it can't be.
Hmm. Yeah, that one might be a little difficult to really finalize. Something to think about, though. Just a different.
Yeah, I think when we study all the trumpets and the golden balls, as well as the seals, we would be in a better position to harmonize. We're just coming from two witnesses' point of view. I'm pretty sure, like, once we study all these things, we have all the ammunition in hand.
Another thing about Revelation 11 is they make war.
Yeah.
Make war, that can be over a period of time.
Obviously, war is a long period of time. It can comprise of several battles.
So when we talk about warfare, we're talking about Ephesians chapter 6,
Exactly. So
the whole armor.
Yeah, everything connects to everything else in Bible. We cannot have an isolated discussion. There are no silos. Some of these battles, like one teacher, I think I already told you, like we listened to some video presentations on Revelation. And he thinks the Armageddon is a spiritual battle for our lives. It's the valley of Jehoshaphat, going back to Ephesians 6. We almost always, people would go to military warfare, like between two kingdoms, all the missiles and all the technology. But they are of the opinion that it has to be Ephesians 6 type warfare. You're right.
What kind of changes, when you think of it in those terms, it changes your perspective on this warfare, that if they are killed and lay in the streets of the city.
Oh, the spiritual Sodom and spiritual Egypt.
Yeah.
The city. That's a bigger chunk to bite.
Yeah. If a person does not fight well, they could end up becoming like those in Sodom and those in Egypt. If you're overcome, it says here, and shall overcome them. So if your armor is not used properly, you'll be overcome. And you'll be dead spiritually as one who is a sodomite.
Yeah. The moment it says spiritually Sodom and spiritually Egypt, boom, they are outside of time and space. So they span across centuries, possibly. They possibly span across multiple nations. So That's the fundamental shift. That's why it is also covering death of Christ, his crucifixion. So they must be spanning wider timeline.
I'm wondering how this warfare and this being overcome by them. See, it says it's the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit.
Mhm.
Shall overcome them.
First makes war,
War, yeah.
then overcomes, then kills them.
I wonder how this ties into Revelation 2 and 3, because there's war in all those churches.
Yeah.
He's telling each one of them to wage war against the enemy within.
Yes. Last Friday we discussed this. You are given an array of characters in 7 letters, starting from false apostles, false Jews, and Nicolaitans, and then Balaam and Balak, and
Jezebel.
Jezebel. So all these characters are evenly spread out. So those are agencies of this beast, perhaps, except Philadelphia and Laodicea. For them, those are not explicitly mentioned. But something we can read beyond what the verse says. It is not say if they are not 2 individual beings, then some of them could be killed, some of them would be defeated, but there could be remnant and residue. So most of the scripts, when they run, they affect majority of the target population. The minority escapes. We see that all through the Old Testament. There's some remnant, like 7,000 men who have not bowed their knee to the Baal nor kissed him. So this remnant concept, this concept keeps on popping out almost every sweeping judgment. So that's
Like Noah.
one caveat we can think.
Yeah, Noah and 8 souls were saved. That's a minority.
Yeah.
And even going into Babylon with Daniel and Ezekiel, most of them were killed, but there was some spared.
Some spared, that's right. So he said, like, many would go in the broad way that leads to destruction. Few would follow the narrow and difficult way. Narrow gate and tribulation filled way that leads to life. So the few would make it still, even though it kills majority, it defeats majority. So that's how I see.
Yeah. Many are called,
Mm,
just a few are chosen.
that's a scary verse. In Zechariah also we see 2/3 are cut off, and the third will make it through fire. And there also it doesn't say equal thirds. We assume equal thirds. There could be unequal thirds. So it's just saying, dividing it into 3 parts, unequal parts. Majority would perish. A small minority would, like 8 souls in Noah's flood, they would come out. all these judgments, mega judgments, they leave some small minority. That's a pattern I see. I'm glad that we're growing and seeing now in more totality of the scriptures. Every scripture we are trying to see in the light of rest of the scriptures, rest of the Bible. We are slowly going there. We are no longer studying in isolation.
Yeah,